Picture this: a bright spring morning on April 16th, 1945, in the historic city of Weimar, Germany. Elegant carriages of fashionably dressed men in tailored suits and women in fur coats and heels line up, flanked by grim-faced American GIs gripping their rifles. What begins as an unlikely parade of high society soon leads to a revelation so shocking it shatters every illusion of innocence. This is the story of how the cultured elite of Weimar were confronted with the true horrors of Buchenwald, forced to walk the same ground where unspeakable crimes were carried out. So if you love stories like this, like and subscribe for more. April's sun cast gentle warmth over Weimar, its cobblestone streets echoing with the footsteps of scholars, artists, and industrial magnates. For centuries, this city had been celebrated as the cradle of Goethe and Schiller, the birthplace of the Bauhaus School, a place where music, philosophy, and fine art flourished. Yet just 5 miles to the north, hidden among the beech forests of Ettersberg Hill, lay Buchenwald, an assembly of barbed wire, guard towers, and mass graves. Since its founding in 1937, this camp had operated within sight and scent of the town, its crematorium smoke drifting in over rooftops. And still, the citizens claimed ignorance. When General George S. Patton's Third Army thundered into the region on April 11th, the SS guards fled, abandoning 20,000 emaciated prisoners behind. Patton arrived days later and surveyed the scene. Naked bodies heaped like cordwood in a central courtyard, skeleton-thin survivors stumbling among stacks of abandoned suitcases and crates of human hair. He tasted bile as he passed the ovens, glimpsed the macabre small zoo the SS had built to mock these victims, and felt a rage no battlefield could satisfy. In his diary, he wrote, "I have never witnessed anything so sickening. This is no act of war. This is pure madness." From the fields just beyond the camp's perimeter, Weimar's townsfolk went about their chores, tilled their gardens, and hung washing on lines. It was as though the stench of death did not reach them, or that they had chosen not to notice. Patton turned to the camp commandant. "Do the people in that town know what happened here?" he demanded. The officer stammered that they all denied awareness. Patton's face hardened. "They're lying," he snapped, "and I'm going to prove it." Within hours, his MPs swept into Weimar with orders unlike any seen before in modern warfare. Not a single mayor or mid-level official. No, Patton wanted the cream of the crop. The wealthy industrialists, professors, lawyers, publishers, the wives of politicians, the heads of concert halls. They traced their way through grand villas and upscale cafes, knocking on doors and insisting, "General Patton requests your presence for a special visit. Put on your coats and come along." Some protested indignantly, "I'm a man of science. You can't order me around." But a cold rifle barrel silenced all objections. So at dawn, on the 16th, 1,000 impeccably dressed Germans formed a peculiar procession on the lane leading up Ettersberg. American jeeps flanked them, ready to curb any escape. At first there was chatter, laughter even. Planters discussed garden parties, a pianist adjusted her gloves, lawyers remarked on the dust coating their polished shoes. They assumed this was some harmless demonstration of American power, a stunt meant to embarrass them. But as the road climbed, the smell changed. A stifling, greasy odor clung to the breeze. Conversations died. Perfume met stench as women pressed silk handkerchiefs to their noses. Businessmen pinched their nostrils. Yet the MPs hustled them onward. "Keep moving. No dawdling." When they reached the gates, those notorious iron bars bearing the twisted motto, Jedem das Sein, to each his own, the civilians hesitated. Beyond lay the camp they claimed they never knew existed. Behind the barbed wire, thousands of prisoners stood silent, gaunt figures in striped uniforms, their eyes, sunken and vacant, fixed on the procession as if measuring the value of each silk dress and polished shoe. No cries of accusation, just that hollow gaze, infinitely more terrifying than a shouting mob. An officer in a spotless uniform herded the guests toward the crematorium yard. There, piled like luggage at a train station, lay families, torso on torso, arms and legs entwined, a silent testament to the industrial killing that had gone on for years. The crowd froze. A society hostess, clutching her pearls, let out a choked gasp and crumpled into the mud. Soldiers laughed harshly, prodding her to rise. This is just the beginning. Patton's order was clear. Make them look. Make them feel the weight of their government's crimes. The tour moved into the stone building beside the ovens, where gurneys once delivered corpses and SS medics conducted grotesque experiments. The windows, stained yellow, filtered cruel light onto a table holding trophies. Two shrunken heads, preserved in glass jars, swatches of tattooed skin cut into shapes like leather scraps. These were the spoils of capos, who selected prisoners for execution so their skins might become fashionable accessories. The assembled entrepreneurs and intellectuals stared in sick silence, some weeping openly, others vomiting in corners. A lieutenant, fluent in German, challenged them. "You said you never knew? These objects were made in your backyard, while you sipped your morning coffee, attended concerts, and promenaded in these streets." There was no answer. From there, the group was led through a quarantine zone, where typhus victims lay unburied. The stench of decay so intense that US soldiers donned masks. But the Germans wore none. Forced to inhale every ounce of disease, they staggered past corpses in walled alleyways, some reaching out with skeletal hands. A former prisoner, once employed at Weimar's station, approached a well-dressed banker. His voice shook as he pointed a bony finger and said, "I remember you. You saw me starving on the platform and walked away." The banker's face went ashen. He fell to his knees, sobbing. I didn't know." But no one believed him anymore. By the time the 1,000 marched back down the hill, their world had been irrevocably altered. No one spoke. No one dared smile. Their fine coats were smeared with mud, their shoes scuffed. The avenue of lindens was a path of shame, leading home to a city that once stood for enlightenment, now tarnished by complicity. Word of Patton's forced tour reached General Dwight D. Eisenhower in Paris. He studied Patton's report and realized the power of eyewitness testimony. He ordered a flood of journalists, politicians, and diplomats to witness Buchenwald for themselves. In a cable to Washington and London, he wrote, "I made this visit so that first-hand proof might never be dismissed as propaganda." He foresaw Holocaust deniers rising decades later and determined to leave an unassailable record. The aftermath in Weimar was grim. Over the next days, several prominent citizens who had refused to believe the rumors took their own lives, unable to face the truth that their civility had coexisted with atrocity. When Patton learned of the suicides, he replied curtly, "Good. Perhaps the rest will think twice." That forced march up Ettersberg Hill stands as a stark lesson. Silence and denial can render a population complicit in evil. The people of Weimar did not pull the triggers, but they looked away as men, women, and children were murdered in their backyard. Patton's unprecedented order forced them to open their eyes, and in doing so, he compelled the world to see what had been done. If you'd like more stories like these, please like and subscribe.